Okay,
rolling.
hi everybody. My name is Ed Mersino, and today what I'm going to do is demonstrate how to plant a tree. One of the most important things about planting a tree is deciding where to plant. And where to plant has a lot of different questions, and I'll talk about that as we do this. First of all, you need a good open space, and this is a pretty open space, as you can see. And unfortunately, we have a lot of ground here to clear before we start digging. So one of the important things you need to do is clear whatever vegetation is in the way, whether it be grass or, in this case, weedilia. So let's do that.
Okay.
So we want to clear an area that's probably twice the size of our container. So you can see the container will fit in here pretty nicely. And it's very important to keep the vegetation away from the plant for several reasons. One reason is that vegetation will compete with your tree for water and nutrients. And the other reason, if you plant in a grassy area, weed whackers. I'm going to show you a little later how to avoid weed whacking your plant, which is one of the main reasons that trees die. Okay, so let's dig the hole. That is like digging in concrete. And it's really hard to dig through it. So when you get down to that hard pan, clean as much of the soil out as you can, and just take your shovel and just jam it in. And you could probably go another couple inches by slamming the shovel into the hard pan beneath it. And you don't necessarily have to dig it out, but you want to make it so that it's a little deeper than just the usual hard pan. But let's take a little bit more of the soil out. Okay. So here's our plant. If you look closely, the pot or the hole is about twice as deep as the pot is. And that's what we need. We don't necessarily look at just the pot. We look at the level of the soil in the pot, the media that the plant is growing in. And we want to keep that level with the ground when we plant. But before we plant, we do some amendments to the soil that's left. One of the things we're going to use is black cinder. Black cinder is rocky, of course, but it also, one of the main things that it does is add porosity to the soil, which means that it holds water but also allows air to take the place of the water when there's no water. And that's important because roots of plants also need air besides water, and you can drown them very easily. Also, we're going to add some organic material. This is especially important in places that are dry and sandy, like along the beachfront, along the coast. So I like to use something coarse, and this is orchid bark. And the reason I like to use orchid bark is it decomposes slowly. You can use peat moss, or we could use some of the stuff I dug up here. But any kind of organic material is important for a couple reasons. One, as it decomposes, it leaves air spaces for the plants. It also holds water, so you don't have to water quite as often. Okay, so we added our cinders and our organic material. So what we want to do is kind of mix it up with the soil that we left in the hole. And there's one more important thing we want to add to it, and that is fertilizer. We want our plant to take off pretty quick, so we're going to add today some slow release fertilizer. Slow release fertilizer is fertilizer that is encapsulated with a type of plastic that is porous. The fertilizer slowly oozes out of the plastic coating because it's porous, but it requires water. And the other thing is that it's temperature related. The warmer it is, the faster it releases. So being in the ground, the temperature is pretty consistent, but it's a little warmer than what you would expect. It normally, most fertilizers that are slow release at around 72 degrees. And you know, in our temperatures in Hawaii, they're much higher. So they tend to release a little faster. You don't want to just dump it in on top and then put the plant on top of it. You want to mix it up in the soil that you have in the ground, in the hole, so that the roots grow all over the place and grow to it. We want the roots to kind of spread out and grow through the fertilizer. Okay, the next thing is to make sure the level is right. You see that if we put the plant in here now, it's way below the surface of the ground. So what we have to do is add some more dirt so that the soil in the pot is level with the soil around it. So let's add some more soil. And again, we want to mix it up with what we already have in the hole. Hold the plant upside down, and with your palm, you make sure that the soil doesn't fall all over the place, and you just push the bottom of the pot. Oh, this one released pretty nicely. And as you can see, the plant is getting kind of pot bound because the roots are all over the bottom, but it'll grow out of that and take over pretty quick. If you want, in a situation like this, you can kind of pull the roots apart a little bit, but I don't think we have to do that with it in this case. Set the plant in, and then now we just fill in around the plant with the dirt that's still around. As we're digging our hole, we hit a colossal rock. We can leave that out. There's a couple of ways to avoid weed whacking. And the easiest way is not to plant grass around your tree. Okay, so we got to make sure that we don't bury the plant. Seems like it's a little too low. Let's pull it up a little bit. Okay. And we just kind of press it in. Okay. Remove all this vegetation. And the final thing you want to do after you plant your tree is make sure that the area around the trunk is clear and you don't bury this little area here right around, because this is the area right around the base of the tree that has already formed a collar. And that collar is where the tree would normally grow. If you bury it, it's quite likely that this area right above the collar will rot and your tree will die. Finally, the thing you have is water it in. And you saw how big the hole is, so you need a fair amount of water. And I'm going to try to wash my hands a little bit. So this is a native hibiscus. And although most people don't think of hibiscus as being trees, I have seen native hibiscus in the forest grow up to 20 feet high. So leaving this guy here, it could get very high. But most people in their yards keep it trimmed to maybe 5 or 6 feet. And they do quite well. So I'm going to show you some examples of what to do after we leave this beautiful little hibiscus, of how to avoid having to weed whack around it. Very good. There are several ways of protecting the base of your tree from weed whackers. One is to build an area around the tree that doesn't get weed whacked. Here you see mondo grass planted around the base of the tree that doesn't grow and doesn't get mowed, and a rubber border or edging that protects the mondo grass. Another way of protecting the tree is planting the whole area with mondo grass. That way you never have to mow.